So I think this is like a really good time because we've got a very solid grounding now on like all the gotchas of PPC and now I think maybe people listening in, especially the ones who aren't very familiar with the topic, are probably feeling like, "Whoa, that's that's a lot." Why don't we walk through an example? I know you've got something to share with us today, where
Yeah,
like let's just talk through that and I think it would be very helpful for people to try to visualize their own website while you're talking through this example.
yeah, absolutely. So the client that I got permission to share is Connecting Threads, and they're a member of a parent company that includes knitting and crochet sites as well. But Connecting Threads is focused on quilters,
It's a
and
great name.
they're yeah, Connecting Threads and its sibling sites are well known in these industries. My wife's a crocheter and knitter, and I have plenty of of their logos in my garage right now, and that's common. They're as well known to people who are really into the hobby as Joanne's is to those of us who are not. So it was a fun account to come into, and the challenges that they were facing originally, and this has been a few years since we started working together, were related mostly to um, having all of their accounts sort of mixed together.
Mhm.
And in this case, because people know their name so well, there's a lot of brand activity, a lot of people searching for Connecting Threads as part of their search. And there are there are reasons to take a look at whether or not paying for those types of brand ads makes sense for each business. I'm generally in favor of it under very strict cost controls, but it's worth A/B testing for incrementality for each site because some of them don't come out that way. But we tested with Connecting Threads and its siblings and found that while it's unclear where those shoppers would then go if they didn't click on the ad, they obviously weren't all coming through organic. And so that's where you measure that incrementality. It's
Mhm.
you have to compare date range to date range, which isn't my preferred solution, but it was effective enough at the time to come up with a pretty conclusive proof that some small amount of investment was very definitely worth doing. And it's interesting to point out that that's the combination. It's not
So
that you
just
should
so I
spend a lot.
understand, the hypothesis here was you've got a X number of people coming via organic, but the
Right.
hypothesis was that if you didn't run this ad, you were losing people who might have clicked on it through the ad, who were never going to come via organic anyway. So you were doing sort of a comparison by date just to show that, well, we didn't change anything with organic, but just with this new ad, we were able to bring in people via the paid channel.
Yeah. So the hypothesis you're testing is that organic searches are going to pick up when you remove the brand campaigns that you were running above them. And
Right.
so if you don't see any change in your organic traffic, or your organic traffic goes down, or and so on, the result is that that hypothesis wasn't supported by that data, and so
Mhm.
you move on to the next hypothesis. Um, so, but the interesting part of that is because brand activity makes up such a large portion of their ecosystem, because people know their name, and because of their history of being um, a catalog company as well, and people still love their catalogs. There's a lot of this direct and kind of brand activity. Fantastic for the brand, means that they've really got their hooks in their customers, and so they were always looking for ways to improve the ratio of new customers to existing customers, because they do have a pretty good recurring purchase rate. It's
Mhm.
basically a replenishable good, especially for things like the fabric and yarns and threads and things. And so that was at odds with the fact that the majority of their ads activity was coming from people that were already searching for their name,
Right.
and those searches were mixed out throughout the rest of the account. And so I see that frequently as well. It's not quite as devastating as mixing up the device type bit adjustments can be, but over a long period of time, it can still be, you know, tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of lost opportunity or wasted spend if you let all this stuff just get mixed together. And the reason for that is if you imagine, 90% of your spend is going into your non-brand activity, your shopping campaigns, your category level text campaigns, things that are related to your product and not your brand.
Mhm.
And 10% of your spend could be going to brand, let's say. But if brand is 50% of your revenue, then your overall ROAS is going to look rosy, because brand is different, and brand is getting mixed in and just completely changing the apparent behavior of the entire account. It's like adding just a little bit of cream changes the color of coffee very, very quickly. Same kind of thing is true here. If you add just a little bit of that brand cream, that black non-brand coffee starts looking lighter and lighter very, very quickly. And so you can end up with what appears to be a healthy account that is actually losing money on the primary thing that it should be profitable on. And while Connecting Threads wasn't in quite that bad a shape, it was definitely afflicted with that kind
So,
of
so let's look at
symptom.
that example. So you're talking about a 90-10 spend, and in this case, you're saying brand is influencing 50% of the revenue. So then the idea there would be to make that 80-20, 70-30. Is that where you're going with this?
Well, so what we advocate is trying to separate out the two types of searches so that you can give them different targets. So,
Okay,
uh,
I got it.
if you say, I want to spend 30% of revenue to attract new customers, then that's fine. And that's what you should do with your non-brand campaigns. But over on the brand stuff, maybe that only needs 10%, or maybe it only needs 5% or 1%. And I recommend testing to find where that roll off is on the
Mhm.
diminishing returns curve. And so then you just run that at whatever is appropriate to capture as much of it as still is incremental, and then manage the non-brand as totally separate. There, on some brands like this one, where the brand activity is very broad, people really know that name. There's also the gray area in the middle, which we call brand adjacent, where it's like connecting threads plus some descriptive
Right, where the
words for
brand
the
becomes a
product.
verb, like Google.
No, no, no. More like if you were searching connecting threads quilting fabric,
Okay,
as opposed to just connecting threads or something. So it is no
right.
longer
It's
quite as similar to direct traffic. It's
mhm.
more like an organic search, and so those kinds of things can be handled on a case by case basis. But the first idea of just taking the two primary groups and separating them out and handling their expected return on ad spend separately is enough of a game changer that it really tidies up accounts. Especially over the sort of medium term.
Mhm.
We're proud of what we were able to do for profitability above and beyond top line revenue growth for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. So essentially, but I think that third point which you talked about, where people are going to be looking for sort of brand plus keyword, that's almost like a luxury, right? That's when you
Mhm.
really made it,
Good problem
where
to have.
people are like associating. So that's a very good problem to have, I think.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So you want to both facilitate that shopper and not let that shopper cloud your view of what shop new to file customers are doing as well.